Welcome to the No Name MMA Show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the first episode of the new year. This is the best damn MMA podcast you've never heard of, the No Name MMA Show. Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. Thank you for joining me on this. I won't say, you know, Happy New Year. I won't do it, but thank you for joining me anyway. First episode, season 4. We have too much to talk about, so let's get right into it for the MMA minute. Yeah, boy, Dana White. So if you have been living under a rock, Dana White, January 1st there was a video that came out from TMZ where he smacked his wife. um Full disclosure, so this is how the video goes. It seems like there was an argument. She was upset, she was walking away, he holds her back. She slaps him, he responds by slapping her back and then slapping her a couple of times, and then from what it seems, it kind of pushes her down, holds her down a little bit. um you know when I first saw the video, it's I don't know. It just seems like somebody who's really comfortable. I mean, to be completely honest, like, it didn't look like he was, kind of struggling to slap her. Maybe that's how their relationship is. I just don't think that in any place should you ever put your hands on a woman. Um, you know, I'm not saying that she was scot free either, but also it's a man that's 3 times her size. Absolutely no reason to put your hands on her. I have jumped people for less. I have literally done that. I am going to have a daughter. If that happened to my daughter, I'm putting a dumbbell through somebody's bones. It just. And I think the disappointing thing for me is, I'm more of a centrist, leftist in terms of my beliefs. I believe the MMA community is, a little bit more conservatively right of center, if not far right. But I think with this, it's shown the MMA community's true colors, and it's just not good. It's just pure filth and slime. And the concerning thing about it, and I'll move on, is that, Dana is not even condoning his actions. He's been, in terms of however you feel, the hardest critic of himself. Which cool, but we'll move on. He had it was media day today for the fights this weekend, and he came out and he talked first. And he said more of the same. He feels terrible. His punishment is that he has to live with this brand of what he is. And no, I'm sorry, I don't agree with, I'm a wife beater now, oh boo-hoo. No, dude, fuck you, man. It's we know what time it is. Why aren't you donating to one of these causes? Why aren't you stepping down for a brief period of time? And no, the fighters are not terribly off without you. There's literally no reason for you to be around. Tell me the last fight he really promoted. He has promoted his. Another part of this, if you don't know, is that he is still promoting his slap fighting league. I don't know. I don't care enough to know what it's called. It's just, it is what it is. Slap fighting league. No joke. I mean, and TBS just kind of postponed it. I think it was supposed to come out today or something, and they just moved it to next week. So yeah, it's just nobody said anything. Endeavor, the owning party of the UFC, they haven't said anything. ESPN hasn't said anything. The UFC hasn't said anything. This is the first thing that they've said, and it was just Dana just saying the same thing that he said in an interview with TMZ that was a toss-up as if like, oh, hey, we got this real quick. We're gonna hit you up and we're gonna ask you these simple questions, and you just do what you can, and yeah, don't worry about it, big guy. We got you. And it's just like, how you must have been so drunk. Like, I mean, it's shameful, man. Like, it is day 11 into the new year, and it's easily just one of the worst years of MMA. And this is what happened day 1. You know? Like, but yeah, some people have been talking about it. Jamie Foxx, DL Hughley talked about it, considering if Dana White was Dana Black, maybe the coverage might be different. I mean, there's just so many questions. Like, how can you possibly cut a fighter now? How? And if I'm a fighter, what I would consider is the code of conduct that you hold the fighters to, that, by the way, they didn't sign to anything. If the president isn't held to that code of conduct, does that mean that their contract with you is broken? I mean, you decide when to, actually use the code of conduct. But if you're going to do it for James Krause, would it not be considered for the president? I guess the president's too big to fail in terms of the UFC. And I think it's just the woe is me. I am now the persecuted, and please just do it. It's like, no, dude. That's the point of a punishment. Oh, the fighters suffer because, well, then they suffer because of you. And they know that it's because of you that they are suffering. Somebody has to be punished for this. This was bad. I think a lot of some of the sentiments that I've read from people that I actually respect their opinion is that you learn this very early on when you're a child. I learned it very on. Like, for me, it was, I got bullied when I was a kid, and I told my mom, like, hey, it's this girl that's bullying me, and she was just like, okay, like, don't do anything. But just like, push her down or get away and spit on her. Like, you should have done that, dude. If she's that much of a danger, hey, I've been there, man. Sometimes when you're young and you're skating out with a bunch of like crackheads, one of them comes at you. So it is what it is. You gotta get out of there alive. So you push her down, you spit on her, you run away. Tough life, rough life. But what you don't do is you put your hands on her. Absolutely no reason to. No reason to. You know what a sane person, like, I've heard of all these breakdowns and stuff of like what happened. The sane person just walks away. That's literally it. Just like, hey, I need my space. I'm out of here. And if you're that drunk, I mean, you're like, what, 60? You can be that drunk in Mexico? No. But yeah, I mean, just the Dana defenders out there. I mean, it's just like so terrible. I mean, it's just like, man, the tone deafness and just, But in terms of updates, the California Legislative Women's Caucus issued a letter to Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel. They were calling for the immediate removal of Dana White. Does this mean anything happens? No, I mean, it's a private company. I'm surprised that Disney's not trying to get in front of this. Like, but that's where it's just like, it just is gonna keep on happening. Like, somebody needs to respond. Somebody needs to say something. I think that's the thing that's most upsetting. But enough of that. We'll move on from that to another bad news update. So yeah, Jose Aldo, the one that we love, and his wife are involved in some controversy. First, if you don't know what's happening in Brazil, just a quick little, insurrection light. Literally, they have a shaman as well. But yeah, so the president over there was Luis Inacio Lula da Silva, and we'll refer to him as Lula. So the president, the ex-president or whatever, he kind of incited this insurrection, Jair Bolsanero. So now you might be wondering why we're talking about these guys. So guess who is the new house guest of Jose Aldo? That's right, Jair Bolsonaro. The if you wanted to draw comparisons, which they're not that crazy, is Donald Trump of Brazil. So yeah. But that's not it. Not only is the president over in Florida living in Jose Aldo's home, but yeah. His wife and him are also involved in a potential handout scandal where his wife, Viviana Pereira Oliveira, may have allegedly received payment from the government. Per the Brazilian news outlet Extra, Oliveira's name was found on Portal de Transparencia, which literally just means portal of transparency, and it's Brazil's public finance tracking website. It shows she allegedly received emergency payouts from a fund designated for some of the country's poorest families during, COVID-19. So, according to the records, Pereira received monthly deposits of about 120 US dollars, which is 600 reais, I think, in Portuguese, between May and October of 2020. 3 more 300 deposits made in November and December of that same year. So that is a total of 4,500 reais, about $860. And then it was also further investigated that she was not registered under Cadecion. So that is Brazil's platform for social programs, which you need to sign up for in order to get these funds. So, yeah. These are also some allegations that the Gracie family is kind of a part of. That was brought to light in March of 2022. So, I was lauding Jose Aldo, and this is kind of like, if you follow football, American football, Brett Favre got into this donation scandal where he used funds for his volleyball team for his college, and it was designated for I think it was PPP loans or something. So yeah, more of the same. Just great seeing my legends just kind of suck. But yeah, we'll move on from that. Aljamain Sterling says on his podcast that he is unsure that he will be able to fight due to a possible torn bicep. Sean O'Malley says, well, let me fight Henry, and Cheeto responds as well, saying that there is no champ. In my opinion is that if he had gotten injured while he was fighting, he should have had surgery right away. Why is he now saying, hey, I have a torn bicep? I think the thing that is the most upsetting about this is because of the indecisiveness. Or, I don't know if it's trolling maybe, or because, I don't know. Then why don't you get surgery then? If that's truly the case, get it now. He might be waiting for an expert opinion, but if you're openly stating that, I'm hoping that you've already gotten it, or if you're being this open, why don't you keep us updated? But in terms of I don't know, it just feels like he's making excuses. But this is also my favorite division, and it needs to move forward. There's too many killers right now, especially for a guy that unfortunately like he is on the cusp of greatness, but he's acting kind of like Tyron Woodley, like kind of like he hasn't, like he, I don't know, like a weird chip on his shoulder, but from the fans, or I don't know. You can't be having a great time on vacation and then also not have had surgery before to kind of heal up. Like, eventually you were gonna fight. I don't know. I'd like to think that it's earned that you get to fight 2 times a year. You know? But when there's that many killers, and Kamaru Usman was taking care of business like that, Israel Adesanya was taking business regularly. I mean, I get it, it's bantamweight, but again, if the weight cut is crazy, maybe you don't weigh 170 pounds outside of camp, you know? Maybe it's not that crazy that you end up taking a fight like 3 times a year. But yeah, we'll see. This might be the best case scenario for Henry Cejudo. And for Sean O'Malley, if he actually wants this fight, it's going to be a tough fight. But maybe he gets Henry Cejudo that, he hasn't fought in 2 years. And from what I hear, he was kind of, chubby or whatever. And he's a father now. His athletic prime might be a little bit past him. Like, who knows? Who knows? I'm interested to see what kind of goes down. But after the Piotr Jan fight, I'm not going to be doubting Sean O'Malley. I do think that Henry Cejudo is going to thoroughly outclass him. But who knows? Who knows? Moving on from that, we have the unfortunate news that Angela Lee, sister to Victoria Lee and Christian Lee, passed away on January 7th. I was not, what you would say, a follower or a fan, but this was family rooted in MMA from one championship. Christian Lee, Victoria Lee, both champions there. Angela Lee was 3-0, 18. So young. Unfortunately, Victoria Lee and Christian Lee decided to close down their gym, and they said that all the money will be returned. Yeah, just further bad news. My thoughts and prayers are with their family during this difficult time. I just can't even imagine having a sibling that young. Yeah. Moving on, Habib Nurmagomedov has announced that he plans to step away from MMA coaching and all that comes with it. Apparently, the manager of Dominance MMA, I forgot his name, put out a statement saying that he will also not be in the corner of Islam Makhachev during his upcoming bout with Alexander Volkanovski. And who knows how credible the information is, but I mean, eventually he has to go back to his family. I'll be interested more to see if he's going to be here this next weekend with his cousin Umar fighting. That'll be more telling, but yeah, I mean, he has to go back eventually. Between Umar, Usman, his cousin Abu Bakr, and Islam. I mean, he's away from his family full time. Eventually, he's got to go back. He has kids. And you don't get that time back. So it's, But yeah, he left a mark. Coach of the year, arguably, for last year. And time will tell how active he will be in the space, what kind of business, what's going to happen with Eagle FC. Who knows? But yeah. And last but not least, I wanted to end with a positive note during the MMA Minute. Keith Lee, a former fighter for Bellator and is now a viral food reviewer, made the rounds of virality in his recent review of a mom and pop shop that was struggling. I forgot to take down the name of the restaurant, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. But yeah, the restaurant became an overnight sensation. So yeah, they're turning it all around thanks to Mr. Lee. He first started doing TikToks in order to become more comfortable speaking on the mic. So yeah, hats off to him for doing good and giving some semblance of normalcy to the sport. Thank you. I needed just a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel of despair. Um, but yeah, um, so we're gonna be moving on to the tail of the tape. So here I'm gonna be going over the main card and giving my picks. First, we have Habib Nurmagomedov's cousin Umar, who I just alluded to. He's a fast rising bantamweight. He takes on Raoni Barcelos, which is a tough matchup, but I think he ends up getting the win and moving up the ranks. If he does end up winning, he will end up. I think he should fight the winner of Adrian Yanez versus Rob Font. I think if he has this much potential, why not try to move him up as fast as possible? Um, yeah, I don't know. The bookies agree with me. I think he's at like minus 950 from what I can tell. So yeah, I'm gonna very much look forward to the first fight of the main card. Yeah, we then have Caitlin Vieira against Raquel Pennington, and I think this fight is solid. I would have Caitlin Vieira as a favorite, at least for me. I wonder how Raquel Pennington is going to be fighting now that her and Tisha Torres have a little one on the way. Um, yeah, I got Caitlin Vieira. And next, we have a couple of 9-2 middleweights with Punahele Soriano coming off of this highlight KO over Liam Gulambala. I don't know if I said it right, but I tried. He is going to be taking on Roman Kopolov, who also just retired Alessio De Chirico in his last fight. I have Puna winning barely. I think this can go either way. But yeah, time will tell again. I think a lot of these fights are very close. We then have Dan Ige taking on Damon Jackson. Ige has lost 4 of his last 5, and Damon is on a 4-5 win streak, ending with that TKO over Pat Sabatini. I think this is a very close one, even though Dan has come up on the wrong side of things. The people that he's fighting are no joke. You got Mozar Evelev, the Korean Zombie, Josh Emmett. He took all of them to decision. Damon flirted with tougher competition once in the Ilya Taporia, and if you don't know, he got knocked out. So ultimately, because of the less damage and winning and just the overall momentum, I got Damon Jackson, though I do hope that Dan Ige gets a win. It will be 2 years in March since his last win, so hopefully it's not 2 years before a win. And finally, for the main event, we have Sean O'Malley going up against Sean O'Malley. What am I talking about? Main event, we have Sean Strickland, first guy to have back-to-back main events since Tito Ortiz back in 2015. He is showing up to replace Kelvin Gastelum after a gruesome mouth injury. When I first heard about it, I was just like, oh, whatever. And then I saw a picture, and then the staph infection was on his face, and it looked kind of bad, but it was actually like, I forget what fighter it was, but like, how I'm forgetting, he has a deer tattoo. Devin Clark. If you remember, his like jaw was broken and his gum was separated. That's what Kelvin had going on with his upper like part of his jaw or whatever. It was like broken, and they had to sew his teeth back on. So it was super duper gnarly. So he is out. That is now 3 fights in a row, I believe, that he has had canceled, and 12 fights overall in his career that he has either pulled out or had canceled. So tough out for Kelvin Gastelum, and this happened outside of the fight, so he has to pay for it himself. So tough time out. The last thing he said was that he was looking forward to putting on a lot of violence. So hope you recover well. So moving on, Sean Strickland, saves the day, making this main event still 5 rounds. It just goes up a weight class at 205. Sean Strickland, was talking about moving to 205, maybe not cutting to 185 since his last fight. But yeah, John Strickland is coming off of a loss to Jared Cannonier, which, was a very close fight. I thought he lost barely, but, whatever. Close fight. It is what it is. And then Nasruddin has a 3-fight win streak, with the last one being a mid-decision over Joaquin Buckley. For me, I think I have Sean Strickland winning. I think he has been in more 5-round fights. His style of fighting is very annoying. He stands up straight. His jab is perfection. For talking as much trash as he does, his fighting is very, very boring. But hey, boring, it doesn't matter. He wins his fights. Unfortunately, not for him, not Jared Cannonier or whatever. But I think that he gives more problems to Imavov, and I think the fight against Joaquin Buckley kind of showed a little bit more. I feel comfortable saying that Sean Strickland will not have a problem with the wrestling of Imavov, but also we'll see what the weight poses in terms of problems for either fighter, or how heavy it was for Sean Strickland for him to change between his routine during the new year and celebrating having time off versus trying to get fit for a fight in a week. But yeah, I still got Strickland. I think he's crazy enough. He's always sparring anyway, so yeah, I think he'll be able to make 205 and he'll have fun out there. So yeah, those are my picks. So Sean Strickland, I have Damon Jackson, I have Punahele Soriano, Kellen Vieira, and then Umar Nurmagomedov. In terms of fights that you need to look out for, what is the bantamweight fight? I think it's Javid Basrahat against Matheus Mendoka. I think that one is a couple of bantamweights, so I'm really looking forward to see that one in the prelims. But yeah, in terms of what the bookies have in Sean Strickland and Imavov, it is a straight up toss up. Dan Ige is favorite at -25. They also have Punahele Soriano at -125, Kellen Vieira at -120, and Umar, -950. So yeah, that's it. Talk at you guys during the fights. If you have Spotify, you'll be able to listen to me. Just look me up, No Name MMA Show. I'm gonna be just kind of talking shit and commentating fights or whatever, just watching along. So if you want to turn it up like it's a radio station or whatever and just kind of have it in the background, if you don't want to listen to some trash, which they have Brendan Fitzgerald, Dominic Cruz, and Paul Felder. Yeah, so it's going to be a pretty good lineup, but still, why not? You can chime in as well. But yeah, I'll post about that more later on, and then yeah, it'll be the post recap show on Sunday. So yeah, hope to see you there. I'll keep you guys posted on the Instagram or Twitter or anything else that I have. Talk at you guys next week. Invest in your mental health. That is season 4, baby, episode 1. Ooh la la, whoop whoop. As always, fuck you, John Jones. Peace. Peace. Good night. Bye bye.
Call me I know what he calls you. Call me a fatherless bastard, dude.